Welcome to the Educators EFT podcast, sponsored by Metro Risa. When you think of EFT, you may very well think of electronic funds transfer. Now, granted, we got the idea from the electronic funds transfer as it pertains to the depositing of money into a bank and having it readily or immediately available at an alternative location, say a store or an ATM. However, this podcast has nothing to do with money. It's about something that I would consider is more important. It's about your feelings and your emotions. So Educators EFT actually stands for an Educator's Emotions and Feelings Transfer. We're looking at how we are depositing emotions and feelings related to our environment or changes in our environment, say from situations like the pandemic, a hospital stay, or a car accident, to only name a few. We are then looking to see how those emotions to changes in your environment influence or transfer into changes in your behavior through your day-to-day activities. Welcome to the Educators Emotions and Feelings Transfer podcast. Our Educators EFT podcast allows us to normalize difficult behaviors in the education profession as they relate to a variety of feelings and emotions that are being experienced, be it in your personal life or in your professional life. Changes in behavior have more to do with your mental well-being than we realize and allows you a glimpse into areas that deserve your attention. We hope that you continue to take this journey with us as we explore some of those feelings and emotions and welcome your feedback along the way. All right, in this episode of our podcast, we have two special guests. We have Anna Murphy and Jeff Mosley, and I'm going to give them both an opportunity to tell you a little bit about who they are and what they do. Anna?
Hello, I'm Anna Murphy. I'm the school social work supervisor for Cobb County School District. I have the opportunity of supervising 32 school social workers, 4 truancy coordinators, and a mentor coordinator for Cobb County School District.
Wow. Okay. Mr. Mosley?
Hi, I am Jeff Mosley. I am the Executive Director over Academic Programs for Marietta City Schools. I currently oversee from pre-K through 12 all of our counselors. I've worked with our social workers. I've worked with prevention intervention. I also see all of our student academic interventions, such as our ESOL programs, our EIP programs, REP programs. I work with all of our advanced academics. And that's making sure that we stay at IB district as well as our gifted and advanced content within our district, and a host of other things. So as I work with the counselors and even our new contracted counselors, we've been able to expand our breadth of how we support students, teachers, and families within the community. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you both for coming in. So basically in our podcast, we are just kind of talking a little bit about not specifically the pandemic, but we have seen a lot of changes since the pandemic in the last 2 years, specifically with our education system. Mm-hmm. And with both of you being supervisors over support staff, I'm curious to see what you've seen. So our first question is, as someone that supervises support staff within a school system, what was your experience with the effects of the pandemic, non-medical, on your support staff? Anna, we'll start with you.
Absolutely. So, one of the things that I noticed, even for myself and specifically my staff, was not being able to do what we regularly did. So we, as the social workers are very comfortable in meeting with students one-on-one, meeting with families one-on-one, going and doing home visits, doing agency visits, and really getting that full picture of the child. And the pandemic really forced us to shift. The virtual world is not part of our world. It is now, but it wasn't then. And so it really challenged us to really figure out how could we still make sure our kids were safe and our kids were getting what they needed, while not being able to check on them, if that makes sense. So it was a very difficult, and continues to be, a difficult struggle for us, but we're just maneuvering the best that we can right now.
Right. So with that maneuvering, especially with social workers, like you said, that's not and normal is a word I try not to use, but that's not a
Right.
typical area for social workers. How was that supervising them, and how was that emotionally affecting them?
So very honestly, I don't know that we as a department realized how much our we were emotionally strained,
Mhm.
until, very honestly, until the end of a full school year. We just did, right? And so it wasn't until the end of, so we school closed, in our minds, that March 13th, that
Mhm.
Friday, that that end of the school year, I think we as a society, we as a school district, we as a department, were all just kind of there, and didn't even have an idea. It was that following school year that really impacted and really challenged, the staff, have children of their own, right? So it was that balance, and figuring out that there is no balance, and figuring out, don't turn that off. If you don't turn your computer off, there will always be something to do. So it wasn't until the end of that school year that we as a department really realized how drained we were.
Mm.
Um, and it was, that school year actually, really try to implement some self-care for staff, some mandated self-care. And so we had, online workouts that we would do as a group. We would have, staff meetings where people would wear funny hats, just being silly, to divert our emotions, and to force us, to just laugh.
Mm.
But it wasn't until at the end of that full school year that I believe we had an idea of what we were just all emotionally drained. Like, it
Right.
wasn't, there was not one person that didn't have some level of just being done.
Yeah. That hitting the wall and burnout can be real serious if we don't pay attention to it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mr. Mosley?
Yeah, I actually want to agree with everything that Anna said. She said it beautifully, as she always does. I will say some of the things that, um, some of the effects of the pandemic for me and for our staff and our schools was just a shift in the beginning to providing basic needs. Like we went from thinking, okay, we need to meet them where they are emotionally, trying to find out how to navigate this world, to the concern was basic needs. How do I meet you where you are virtually?
Mhm.
Get you the things that I would provide for you on a regular basis. And then at that point, try to do a check in.
Yeah.
And then once I do a check in, how do I navigate that world to then provide support? It was an avenue too for families to connect
Mhm.
with educators, whether it be teachers, counselors, social workers, psychologists, anyone in that space. Some of the other effects is that we had to learn how to. Anna mentioned, the self care things for staff, but establish those safe spaces where we can get into a room and
Yeah.
we can talk and we can get it out and know that we're here for each other. I
Mhm.
believe some of the effects as well as was also that there was a different level of trust with our peers and relationships that were formed and built
Yeah.
because in that opportunity, there are people that we probably would have never interacted with in schools in our community
Mhm.
because we are focused on our kids in person, real time. But
Right.
because we were able to kind of have to force to this virtual space, not only did we have to learn how to navigate technology, but then we had to learn how to use it to support our overall goals. And it created more collaborative communities. I will say that. And we have established more relationships, I think, as a result of that. So I think the effects of the pandemic, while there's some negative connotations, there are also some very positive things that have come out of it with how we support students. But also, there are a lot of missed marks, I'll be honest, in the very beginning, just because we didn't know what we didn't know. We create safety plans for emergency evacuations, for fire drills. We don't create emergency plans for a pandemic where you shut down and you are out of school for extended periods of time. So this is just it shed a light on a lot of that, on a lot of those different things. And so I would say, like, that's just some of the things that we took away from it. But all out of it came a lot of opportunities as well. And those opportunities, I say, for us and several districts, our neighboring districts. I know Anna has dealt with a lot of this too. Is we were able to employ different people to support students in different ways. Whether that was hiring more counselors, more social workers, more clinicians, more mental health providers, building relationships with outside organizations, we were able to really kind of level the playing field and say, okay, what do we need now for our students? So it opened a window that had not been opened in the past. And so I'm completely and eternally grateful for that. And that's kind of the experience in short, kind of what we've gone through.
Yeah. So both of you said a few things, and one kind of putting it into perspective of what our staff were listening to. So one of those, what I heard, we definitely heard loss. We talked about loss, and we talked about what that loss has done based on the changes, especially for social workers and possibly counselors and other school staff. But we also kind of talked about secondary traumatic stress, and what that looks like. And even with those relationships, like I guess my thought is, and Jeff, you made a really good point, and maybe we'll start here first. What I used to ask people in some of the workshops I do is I would ask them, what gift did COVID give you? And for them to kind of rethink the whole process of the pandemic. So what gift did the pandemic give you? So before we get into the ugly part of stuff, both of you, like, what gift personally did the pandemic give each of you? Oh, Anna, sorry.
Okay. So personally, it definitely provided me the opportunity to see my own kids and my husband, and recognize that our work environments are extremely different. My husband and I have extremely different work environments, where he is doing spreadsheets all day and I'm talking all day. And so now I understand the dynamics at the end of the day, right? Something that simple. So 20 plus years it took the pandemic for us to realize. And for my kids, realizing one did very well academically online, the other one needed that socialization, and it really it was a struggle for him. As far as professionally with staff, it brought to light how some staff, even though technology, they appear to be technologically savvy, they struggled with the social work that they know to the social work that needed to be done now. And so it was a constant reassurance of, yes, you can't do the home visit, but you're still doing what you need to do. And that reassurance of you're still a good social worker, even though you're not doing what you've always known your social worker to be. And then also personally, I did not, I probably did realize, but I needed that physical touch And
Mhm.
so even when you saw someone, you have that distance, and that physical touch was huge for me, of not
Yeah.
having it, of touching the arm, of acknowledging. That was my way of letting someone know I hear you, I'm here, I'm present. And not being able to do that and then have a mask on was that struggle for myself of how do I get that
Yeah.
person to know that I'm, you can just blink so many times. How do you get
Right.
that person to know that you're really there without using the tools that you've always have been just natural to you?
Right. Right. That's definitely right. Go ahead, Jeff.
And so
Mm.
the gift that I got from the pandemic um, was the gift of understanding that I have to have balance. And I never had it in 20 years. So 20 years I worked and didn't take care of myself. And so the pandemic gave me opportunity to reflect and say, you have to take care of yourself to be present for those people that need you or that want to be a part of your lives. And so that was what it did for me personally. And that's practice to me. I mean, it's driven me into points that I would never think I'm in now, to just making some changes in my life that have never felt so good. And so I'm
Right.
so thankful for, just that gift, that in the midst of a crisis, in the midst of, a pandemic, then I was gifted with the opportunity to be able to grow myself in such a way that I couldn't have done by myself. Um, and professionally, when it comes to the staff and to the people that I support and serve, we were able to leverage this and take advantage of some resources that were provided to add more people to buildings to support more teachers and staff as they returned. Whether it was through teaching, supply teachers to help, that classroom size, or whether it was more counselors, as I stated, or more social workers, or more psychologists, we were able to add capacity and build people and build a team so that they weren't
Mm.
doing this work by themselves anymore. Because many of our
Right.
students had one counselors. So we were able to leverage that so no one was by themselves anymore. And they had a partner to work with. And I think that not only was a gift to that employee, it was a gift to our students, to our administrators, our communities. And so, those were the gifts that I received from the pandemic. And like I said, I will be eternally grateful for every moment, the good, bad, the ugly, and the great. When I walked into the grocery store and was like, I don't even cook, but let me get this chicken just in case. Just the small things, the
Exactly.
small things. So yeah, that's it. That was it for me. So thank you.
But you know what? I love the small things. And I think that that's what some of our listeners that are educators can take away, is really being able to pay attention to the small things. Because not only did Anna's gift get to kind of reconnect with the family, but it kind of gave her an opportunity to change lenses and be like, oh, this is what we're doing. This is why this is happening. This is why when I get home, it's like, hey, guess what? Let me tell you this. And you're like,
Uh,
I sit down. But I love that example, Anna, because I think that during the pandemic, I was having people call me because they were saying I'm annoyed with my spouse. Like, I feel bad because I'm annoyed. And then if you do some more processing of that annoyance, it's because they're just learning
right,
what the dynamics really are.
right, right,
And so there should be no shame or guilt
right,
behind the you being annoyed, because guess what? You both still need time. So you
right.
might want to go ahead and say, give me some time upstairs. You can go downstairs. We'll reconnect in about an hour.
Exactly,
But
exactly.
I think people were so guarded with that information because they were thinking it meant something else.
Right, right.
And then with Jeff, I think the good part is you kind of said the same thing that Anna said in regards to her skin withdrawal, meaning the physical touch. You're fed, from what I'm gathering, you're fed by the experiences of other people and being able to go ahead and serve. You actually were able to feel that need by serving during the food bank. So you kind of kept filled, so
Mhm.
to speak. But I love the fact that you actually took that and looked at yourself. that kind of transitions into the next question. What like specific staff experience did y'all have that you think sharing and giving some advice similar to what you gave that staff member would be beneficial to others to hear based on their emotional responses to stuff? Anna?
Sure. So actually, I am going to steal Jeff's example of really looking at that small stuff. We do, as much as we feel that we're reflecting and we're processing daily, we do have a routine within our days, no matter what position you are. And you're an automatic. Even if it's a counselor or a social worker and you're processing, it's still an automatic type of day of your day, of your work day. And so stopping and thinking and stepping outside of your office, stepping away from your classroom, even if it's that 10 to 15 minutes. And I know a lot of times we don't have not even 10 minutes, but just a couple of minutes of stepping away and stopping whatever and breaking up that routine makes a big difference. One of the things that I had implemented with our department a few years ago is Fresh Air Fridays. And so once a month we meet in the morning and we just go for a walk, and then in the afternoon, so whoever can join us, and we're not allowed to talk about work. So we're not staffing cases, and anytime they try, I walk away. Right. So I'm very purposeful.
Right.
And it's
modeling.
It's exactly modeling. And it's all about just stopping and taking the fresh air, because as Jeff mentioned, if you don't, you're just in that routine of constant routine. And even though you have summers off, you have a different routine. Right. And no matter what is going on with your day, you have to stop and take that time. From 5 to 10 minutes, I believe, is enough to reshift your brain. And it's not going to the bathroom. That's not a break. It's really stopping and doing something different. It's enjoying that bottle of water without just guzzling it and not acknowledging it. And, I guess for lack of a better word, it's being very mindful during that period of time and really taking those moments for yourself, and I would venture to guess that Jeff did that, and that's what led him to make different decisions and to feel at peace with himself because of that.
Definitely. So definitely being intentional and mindful in what you're doing.
Absolutely.
In the moment. So being present. It's being present focused. I love that.
And sometimes you need to step away. You might think that you're being present, but it's part of your routine. And so if you step away, and you even sitting in your office but in a different chair, forces you to be more present.
I like that. Jeff?
I love that, Anna. I love that. So Anna mentioned Fresh Air Fridays, and one of the things I've done since I was a principal into this current role is called an open air. And my open air is whenever something's happening, whether it's a student, a teacher that was having a moment or something, just got some news about something, I was let's take an open air. Or they would come to me and say, I need an open air. And that meant that me and them took a walk around our building, a lap around the building, sometimes in complete silence. Sometimes it was to just change the course of what's happening. Sometimes it was to cry. Sometimes it was just to laugh and find things that we're grateful for. So one of the things that's something that I've done. So I love that Anna had the Fresh Air Fridays because that's awesome. I love that, and it involves a number of people. Um, what I would say some of our staff experience that would have led to this open air piece is kind of some of that burnout of trying to navigate, home and trying to navigate school all from home and not changing environments. I think we didn't realize how much an environment change or shift matters to some people,
That's right.
where they need to get up and leave the desk, get up and leave the office, get up and leave, get dressed to leave home, because that can sometimes change your whole mindset. How the music in the car when you're driving to work, or even the silence, can completely change your mood, can change your mindset, and prepare you for what's coming next. Um, I think what I've seen also with some of our experiences is mental health awareness of self for the adults, the faculty and the staff, and then being able to say, this is what I need, or where do I go? And feeling safe to come to me and say, who do I call because? Or someone
Mhm.
says, I have a friend that I'm worried about. What should I do?
Right.
And I don't think those things would have happened prior to the pandemic as as easily, just because, at this point, mental health was not taboo. It wasn't something that we couldn't talk about or that had this negative connotation. It was, we all have a level of mental health, or health, um, mental health needs that we have to take care of. The question
Hmm.
becomes, where's your level? How are you managing it? And if you've never experienced it, let me help you figure out how to manage it or connect you with the right people,
Right.
agencies, or person. And so I think that's some of the things that, have come as experiences of the pandemic. I would say I saw a lot more compassion come out of people. I saw
Yeah.
compassion at an all-time high. I saw people commit and dedicate more of themselves to things that they were passionate about. And I'll be honest, one of the things that shifted for, I'm going to say, 4 or 5 people in this space was I saw a lot of classroom educators realize that counseling was their passion.
Oh.
Hmm.
And so from that, they decided to go back to school to
Yeah.
shift, to do things because they realized that their place was in the field of supporting others emotionally, mentally, and socially, or a social emotional component. And then I saw the one thing that we've always done, but never before to this degree for myself, is advocacy. I saw more people advocate for people and for the things that they believed in such a
Hmm.
way that it sparked almost a movement, within communities, to where there were community phone calls, community forums, teacher forums. Everyone was coming
Hmm.
together to say, how do we make sure we can get this for this student or this for this family? How do we support this? They would notice the background on the student's thing. Is this student is in the background that we need to really have a conversation about, or just let's do a wellness check on some people just to make sure they're okay.
Yeah.
And so I think those are some of the experiences when I think about faculty and staff that came out of that, whether it was them personally, the things that they observed or witnessed, or someone else, that I think really, is something that we can take from this, that, I hope and I pray and I feel will continue now because we felt it, we've experienced it, and not just talked about it. So, yeah.
Yeah. I love that. I love the fact that we also got into a place of furthering the decrease of the stigma related to mental health. I do hope that any of the faculty and staff that listen understand that there are people, whether it's a good friend that you trust, maybe it's a supervisor, maybe it could actually be the social worker that's in your building or the school counselor that's in your building. We all, as Jeff said, have a level of mental health that we are trying to maintain, and it's just like you having your personal health that you're trying to maintain. I do think personally that through the pandemic, that level, like our norm level, our baseline, kind of shifted.
and we were expecting and almost hyper vigilant about what's coming next, because that's how it was, especially from, like Anna said, from the March 13th on. It was something new every 2 days, if not every day.
Right.
So I don't know how y'all handle that, but like in terms of your personal wellness, like your personal well-being, has any changes been made for you specifically about your own personal mental health or well-being?
So, I can share, I found myself trying to figure out what's coming up next. And then it took me maybe about 9 months to go, well, what does it matter? Even if I figure it out, like, so what? Like, it just doesn't, because I kept I think we're going to come back this time, or no, this is going to happen, or that's going to happen. And then I finally stopped and go, what does it matter? Like it's okay. No matter what happens, you'll figure it out, right? You'll adapt.
Nice.
Yeah. I think personally and professionally for myself, although I always believe that I did very well with self-care, and Jeff, you mentioned that the routine, I need that routine of getting dressed, getting in the car, going. And so I never I thought that I'm adaptable. I'm a social worker. I'm flexible. And so it definitely made me stop and realize, and what has changed for myself is, in the mornings before I get in the car, I take the moment to acknowledge and appreciate all that I have. When I come to work, before I start work, I stop and I take and appreciate all that I have and acknowledge what I have at work. When I go home, so it's
gratitude.
The gratitude of every phase of my day, and really appreciating it. And, the 285, I always call it the 285 loop, right? Before, it used to give me a level of anxiety and frustration, more so than anxiety. Whereas now I almost even appreciate it, if that makes sense, because it means that something is back in my life that I needed.
Yeah, I like that.
Which I don't know that 285 would have ever been something that I would acknowledge.
Right.
But yeah, and so I find myself just appreciating, again, what Jeff said, the little things, the day-to-day things that I didn't realize were there for a reason. Right. Now I acknowledge and take the time to acknowledge and appreciate.
I like that. I like the fact that you're also letting people know that. So one of I don't know if it's a pet peeve, but I know that there's a lot of mental health words that have become trendy words. And so people use the word triggered a whole lot. And normally it's in a negative connotation, which I know where it's from. But I love the fact that you identified those good triggers, because that's what those were. You getting in the car triggered your mind and your body to say, "Oh, we're about to go ahead and shift into supervisor role." Same thing. Yeah, it was leaving to say, "Okay, I'm going from being a parent to being the supervisor of X amount of people."
Right.
And the music allowed that. The traffic allowed you to go ahead and just kind of do different thought processes, but it triggered those aspects of your life. I love that. So you became more intentional and aware of your positive triggers.
Correct.
I love that.
Correct.
Yeah.
What about you, Jeff?
And I'm really gonna echo what Anna said. One thing that I did this year was I bought a gratitude journal for many of the people that I work with and support, um, or that support me, I should say. Um, and I gave them a gratitude journal. And also with my grandmother, my mother, and my nieces, I sent them one for the little kids and one for the household. And so I became the gratitude guy. I was just mailing it to my family through Amazon. I was shipping it everywhere. Um, and what I didn't do was open mine because
Mm,
I continued to work and I continued to drive and come to work and do things every day. And so it was one Friday, I'll never forget. I woke up and I was like, nope, you're going to open this and you're going to start today. And I continued to do that. And then I began to have conversations with people. And it just became life. It's almost like everything just lifted and everything was like, you know what? This is what it is today. So how are we gonna make today the best day possible? How do we go out there and make sure everyone sees our smile? We continue to pour into people because I'm refilling my cup every morning by being thankful. And
amen.
as you said, Anna, I'm acknowledging and appreciating the things that I have. And when I'm doing that with myself every morning, I can then continue to pour into other people and
Right.
pour into everyone else. And you don't look for anyone to pour into you because you're doing it with the things you have and the things you've been given. Whether you say you've been fortunate because of the universe, or you've been blessed with, or it's been provided for you, or you work for it, you have a level of something that you're getting that's giving you and fulfilling you in that space. And so the gratitude journal has been something that I have stuck behind, and even coming out of things and shifting. I don't know if we're out or in right now, but shifting from where we were to where we are. I said to everyone, if when you finish that one, get another one,
That's
and
right.
just start over again and keep it going because it allows you, along with the positive affirmations. Um, my niece, she's in middle school and I understand what that's like. So I sent her some affirmation cards. And so she will now call me and FaceTime me and she's like, what's our affirmation this morning? And so we'll talk in the mornings just about those simple things. And so personal experiences for me have been to make sure that I connect with other people and have those positive conversations because when you work in social work, when you work in counseling, when you work in mental health, you're constantly faced with trying to find ways to support people to find a way for them to become better or to find their balance or to find their neutral ground. And so when you're able to now say, okay, um, I can help someone find a positive light first. Sometimes
Mhm.
that helps them counter the negative experience that's going to happen later in that day. And so
Yeah.
they may not hit it as hard or it may not hit them as hard because they're able to, you know what? Today's going to be a great day because I'm amazing. And those small things actually work. And so I just, for me, I began to prioritize what I value. I prioritized what my needs were. I was able to find that balance and just take time for me. I went on my very first vacation ever in life, out of the country, immediately following the initial or this last break. And I promise you, it was like I like, oh my God, I gotta go every month, and I can't. But I was like, I want to go every month. Like this should be everyday life. Like who can live without these beaches, So that was just something that something that I just thought was extremely amazing, and it was to Costa Rica, But what it did was it put me in tune with a different culture and climate where people were genuinely and authentically themselves. And I brought that back with me and was like, this is how you live every day. You treat people how you want to be treated. And if you are having a bad day, take that moment on 285 and have your music, have your quiet time. For me, have your praise and worship. And then you do what you have to do to get where you got to be so that you can show up for the people that's depending on you every day.
Mm,
Because we were called to do this work. It's not like we chose it, it chose us. And we were called to do it because we're built for it. And I think
That's right.
that's the piece that, goes the mile, is that we're built for this. So we have to figure out those moments and those things that continue to center us and balance us so we can be the very best person for those that are going to seek us out to help them become their very best selves. So yeah, that was it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I will say that for those that are listening and feel as though you are not built for this, I want you to understand the whole context of what we're talking about. There are things to be put in place to make sure and ensure that you are doing for you, so that can start being a bigger feeling that you have.
Yeah.
Just because you're not feeling it right now doesn't mean that you aren't. The fact that you're in the job or in the profession means that something happened for you to be here.
That's right.
We're just making sure that you find those niches in your life to put more focus on so that you can be as present as possible every day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love the fact that you talked about journaling. I think people hear journaling and like, oh, a therapist probably told me that, and I don't feel like writing in my little dear diary. But there are so many different options, and you have, like Jeff said, those guided journals for gratitude, or you have those planners that have different things that you can write into, or you can just have a notebook that you can write things in, and it doesn't have to be, dear diary, I felt like this. It could be a list. Just write some things, like Anna said, she was being grateful for just her daily, just throughout the day, different phases of her day. Thank y'all so much. Is there anything else that you would like to leave the group with in terms of maybe some positive reassurance now that we're about to start this new school year, or any words of wisdom? Anna?
I would say my words of wisdom is always to allow yourself to stop and take that break. And it's okay. It's okay to need others. It's okay to not have the answers to everything. I have had the great pleasure of working very closely with Granville and Jeff, and they are part of who I reach out to because I don't have the answers. And it's okay to reach out. It's okay to stop and take that time for yourself. I think we, in certain professions, feel that we're supposed to do all and be all, and it's okay.
Awesome.
That's right.
Yes,
Jeff?
yes. And for me, it's simply remember that you were called for this. And in some cases, you think, oh, I chose this, but you were called for this work. You were called to be doing exactly what you're doing in this moment right now. You matter. You have value. More so, you bring value to so many, and you bring purpose. And my last thing would be, you are the why people show up every day. You are the why people do what they do. So remember that when you're feeling in a space, or you just are wondering the what ifs, remember that, what people say, well, what's the why? And know that you are the why for a lot of people in their lives. So thank you.
Yeah, I echo what both of them said. I think that the reality is, it's okay to not be okay, but make sure that you let someone know, so that okay only lasts for that moment, not the whole day, not the whole week, not the whole month, but just for that moment.
Yeah.
You may have bad instances, but you don't necessarily have to have a whole bad day. So with that, be mindful of your self-care, and just know that we all see you, we all hear you, and we all continue to support you when needed, and sometimes when you don't.